Good afternoon. We don't have everyone here today. We only have about 16 of you. You guys must be super busy preparing for your weekend. So this class got rescheduled twice, and here we are again. I wish that we could have done it during the primary opening of the Lionsgate Energy, but we could not. So we're here. And I think it was due to the fact that it was a difficult ascension period for the majority of empaths and healers and channels that are in our unique soul family. So we had to go through what we're going through and what we've been going through and what we're still kind of going through in order to even be prepared for this. We had to go through the waves of energy that were occurring in those moments. So that's pretty much, in my opinion, why a lot of things happened this month that most people, including myself, were not prepared for. Yes, it was indeed very, very difficult. So I'm going to go through some of your questions in terms of what you had asked me about this class. And some of the basic questions we'll get through first, and then we'll go over the new scale of consciousness as presented by the Lyran Feline ambassadors that have been about it. And you will notice some significant difference between this newly presented scale of consciousness that we're now operating on and the David Hawkins scale of consciousness that has been popular for the past 10, 15 years or so. So it has changed significantly. So we'll get there in a moment. First, a lot of you were asking me, what is it? What is the Lionsgate portal? And in order to understand the answer to that question, you would have to go back significantly in galactic history to the times of Atlantis and Lemuria. And you'd have to understand that there was a unique energy portal, if you will, in the center of Atlantis. For those of you who attended my Atlantis and Lemuria class yesterday, you'll understand what I talked about because we discussed it a little bit, that there was some sacred energy portals in the center of Atlantis, right in the very, very center in the capital. So that was actually called the Lionsgate portal, and Atlanteans and Arcturians actually guided and guarded this portal. And when some of those energies started to get out of alignment, if you will, towards some of the higher scales of consciousness, getting away from, grace and bliss and joy and love, as more of the dualistic universal games and life lessons were introduced karmically for expansion into the Atlantean and Lemurian collective, that gate, that portal started opening more. And I don't want to portray that as a good or bad notion or experience for the Atlanteans, but I will say they had some pretty profound consequences, including so much of an energetic shift and difference in various dualistic collectives who were expanding at the time. Gosh, I am itchy on my skin today. I'm sorry. That basically Atlanteans and Lemurians had very different ways of expression in their energetic consciousness. And on the scale of consciousness, they were very different from each other in how they expanded. And because of the clash and the lack of equality in the collectives of Atlanteans and Lemurians in terms of energetic frequencies, they were so different from each other that there's no way this could cancel out. And for those of you who follow a lot of my galactic histories, you'll know what I'm about to say insofar as the consequences, the natural consequences in the tectonic plates of the Earth therefrom. This included a massive earthquake, which propelled Atlantis into a major tsunami, like one of the biggest tsunamis that has ever occurred on this planet. So out of over, 13,000 years, that I can't think of any other major occurrence. Like, 12,000 years ago, that was when that happened. So even prior to that in Earth's history, there was nothing that big. So of course it wiped everyone out because of the clash in energetic frequencies. So when that gate portal opened, the Lyrans were responsible for helping Atlanteans and Lemurians manage it, but being responsible for it doesn't necessarily mean being accountable. We are only guides, guides, channels, healers, teachers, etc., etc. So, to answer your question, that is a portal of energy that opens up at varying rates at all times. And if humanity, and in the case of Atlantis and Lemuria, if Atlanteans and Lemurians were not ready for it, or there was a clash or an imbalance in those frequencies, then it could have physical results, including the shifting of the tectonic plates in the Earth's crust. It's the air that's doing it. I'm going to turn off my fan. Hang on a second. Fan's constantly blowing on my face. I'm having a lot of ascension symptoms that involve physicality right now. So itchy skin and some neuralgia in my face and problem with my atlas being out of alignment, some of which had to do with that plane problem, being jolted around. So I don't know if you guys are experiencing incredibly physical ascension symptoms right now, but I know I am. So I couldn't handle even the fan on my face. That's how badly my neuralgia is affected in my face right now. So not a happy camper with the trigeminal neuralgia lately. All right, so that is basically what the Lion's Portal is. It's an opening to a waves of energy coming in, and sometimes it's closed, sometimes it's a little bit open. Right now it's a lot open, but in comparison to the time when it was open in Atlantis and Lemuria, I tell you, my skin hasn't itched all day until now. So I guess I'll turn off that other fan too. In comparison to Atlantis and Lemuria times when it was open, probably more widely than it has ever been in the history of Earth, I'd say now, like then, it was about 80% open, and you saw how much we handled that as Atlanteans and Lemurians. And that time we didn't. We had a massive earthquake, then a tsunami. And in tsunamis, what basically happens is the water retracts from the land, and then there's nothing but mud. And the entire city was encapsulated in mud and buried. They couldn't recover from it. It just the water kept retreating and retreating and retreating. So I turned the fans off now because they were itching my skin and aggravating my neuralgia, but now I'm hot. Oh, gracious. Okay. One of the questions you had that I will answer next is you asked how far we have come in this particular ascension, this time in our lifetime. And in order to answer that question, put the fans on my feet. Really? They won't reach that far. That would be a lot of effort, but why do you want me to do that? My feet are hot, by the way. But going back to that with how far we have come in ascension, basically, it doesn't matter. We do this every time. And ascension is not a place to go. It is not a goal. It is not a certain level of something that you go towards. It's more of how deeply you awaken from your sleep so that you realize the power and the glory and the oneness, the wholeness, the peace, the love, the joy, the grace that already is, has been, and always will be, especially upon realization of it. You feel my discomfort? Oh my heck, I'm sorry if you're feeling that. I'm so uncomfortable. So, but basically I can tell you that on a scale of consciousness, David Hawkins represented it as a level of 1 to 1,000 in terms of what the frequencies represented in our waves of ascension. He was a Lyran feline and Arcturian hybrid being who had a lot of knowledge, and some of his information about the scale of consciousness has been updated since then. So we will give you the scale of that. And one of you lovely beings can hopefully create me a beautiful graphic of both pages of the scale, the new scale of consciousness that we'll talk about today. And basically, David Hawkins also, as a Lyran feline ambassador, he also told us during the time of his life that we were only, I think he said when I channeled him today, that we, at some point prior to his passing, His most recent information at that time dictated that we were only at 74 million is what he told me of awakened beings in terms of how we were handling the gate being the portal being open and our waves of ascension and waves of consciousness that were shifting in our history. But he also wanted me to explain to you that we start in a very tough place and then kind of go through the waves of ascension from sometimes 1 all the way up to 1,000. And we do this every 4,000 years. So that is why I said it really doesn't matter. So yes, I did just say David Hawkins. Yeah, is that an interesting synchronicity to some of you that he would be here today? I'm not surprised because he was an ambassador but for both Arcturians and the Lyran Feline Collective, the lion people. So in that soul group, he's both in Arcturian soul groups and in the soul group called the Lion People. He's been an ambassador for as long as I've known him, and many other names and many other existences. So he came back to show us where we were at the time, but the information that he's giving me now is a little different in regards to like what he said the scale of consciousness was and where we were at 74.5 million people at the time of his life being awakened versus where we are now. He is now telling me that we are over 40% awakened, basic level awake. Basic level meaning over 200 on his scale of consciousness that was known at the time of his life embodied. So yeah, everybody's like cheering, woot woot, me too. And he and Dolores have both been telling me that for a long time. They are a part of similar collectives, except she has a more of an Andromedan approach. And she is one who guarded the Orion's gate for a long time as well. So she knows her stuff. So both of them agreed today that we are over 40% awake at the basic level of over 200 in the David Hawkins scale of consciousness at this time. And by the year 2021, we are going to be at a 49% awake point. So we have a little ways to go before we can reach that point where we can at least get even close, but we're almost there. We're almost at the tipping point with that. So that would be probably around 3.9 billion people right now, if I'm accurate with my numbers when I channel him. Isn't that pretty impressive? You guys thought I was going to be all doom and gloom today, but I am not. I know some of you were really worried about what that was going to be. Could it be sped up? You don't want it to be. He said that so bravely through me. He said, you don't want it to be. So, and he's right, because you don't want to go through these waves of consciousness too soon, too fast. They can be, as you have observed from watching your own teacher go through it, they can be treacherous. It's treacherous waters there with so much happening at once. So intense is a good word, Stephanie. Yeah, intense is a good word. So we're gonna be going through some big changes. One of your questions stemmed around newness. You wanted to know what is new about the event as it stands right now. What's new from what I'm observing and from what both David Hawkins and Dolores have been telling me over the past 2 weeks is that our ascension symptoms in our bodies are getting stronger. So our bodies cannot handle the waves of energy getting higher because they're used to being lower. So our bodies are reacting. My nervous system is going nuts. I have not experienced trigeminal neuralgia since 2015. So I don't know if you notice the energy on this side of my face, like my eye keeps closing, all that kind of stuff keeps happening. My skin's itchy, like from here all the way to here. And I couldn't even handle like the fan on my face right now. It was hurting. So what's interesting in empaths and channels and healers is that we are becoming more physically sensitive in our physiological, levels of us are becoming very, very sensitive. I haven't washed my hair in 3 days because the whole right side of my face from about here Behind my eye, all the way down is hurting, and all across my nose too, like right up under here, bottom lip, everything over here is hurting. And my eyes have been twitching. For people who are opening to clairvoyance, you get a lot more itchiness and allergies in the eyes. So there's a literal skin sensitivity that I've noticed in the ascension symptoms are getting stronger. I have noticed a lot more bone issues, particularly in arterians, a lot more rheumatoid and osteoarthritis, neuralgia, as well for arterians, really strong neuralgia. I've noticed things like tremors increasing. That's another neurological condition. I've just noticed so much physicality within the ascension symptoms. So that's what's new as of the past like 3 to 6 weeks. I've noticed sensitivities towards heat, sensitivities towards cold, sensitivities and allergens in the environment. So a sensitivity towards even something as simple as essential oil. One of my teachers is like that she has to turn on an ionizer if her students come into her home with essential oils on, and I try not to, but sometimes I forget. She has to turn on like 2 or 3 ionizers and wear ionizers around her neck to just like dispel. She's even allergic to essential oils. So I've noted, and she's possibly around her 70s right now, a very evolved being, and she still is having like these allergic sensitivities. So yeah, more allergies. Yay. What else? I'm noticing in empaths who aren't allowing the hearts to expand more, yet their unique gifts are empathy and healing. I'm seeing a rise in heart attacks, leaky valves, inhalers, pulmonary problems getting stronger. And that's because of the negative core belief of I am restricted is stronger and more enunciated right now. Just crazy. So hormonal changes in healers and empaths as well, both men and women. Shifts of vocal frequency, like if your voice is normally low, it'll be high. And if your voice is normally high, it'll be lower. So this is hormonal. And I'm noticing an increase in cluster headaches, not necessarily migraines, but allergy-based headaches and cluster headaches. So mainly physical things about the ascension are getting harder, and anxiety from the mental conditions, both schizophrenia and anxiety, are on the rise in our healers. So that's something to be aware of, that you have to ground out your emotions and pay attention to your heart. So other than that, what I'm noticing is just that sometimes the cellular nature of the body has to be activated. And when the cells are awakening to their light, they have to take a bit of a quantum leap that they're not ready for. So I know that you have been probably listening to me give this analogy over and over and over again every single time, every year I talk about the event, right? But I'm going to tell you it again because it's significant. When you're driving in a car, and say if you drive like, old cars or used cars like I do, then you will notice, especially if they're more than 10 years old, they have this certain shake in the engine when you get like around like 60, but then by the time they reach 70, it seems to settle out. That's because the energy of the engine is stronger than the ability for the physicality of the engine to keep up with. So this is kind of a metaphor for your body. If your energetic, if your quantum energy is stronger than the spark of your physical energy will shake and try to keep up, and it just can't. Hence all these ascension symptoms. I just made my screen shake. So hopefully you understand that analogy. It's a hard thing though. So that's what's new about the event, is that we can't keep up. It's going so fast and it's so intense that our bodies are literally quaking and shaking to try to keep up with the energy that is within us at the very cellular nature. So the next question you had was, how do we handle these ascension symptoms? You don't handle them. What you do is be present for them, sit through them, try to do what you can do in your spiritual practice with whatever you have in your tool belt. So meditation, as you know, I'm going to say, is always the go-to. for handling ascension symptoms, because it calms down the mind. And the mind is running at such a high speed that it perpetuates the body to try to keep up, hence the symptoms. So if you slow down your mind, then you can calm down the cellular reaction in your body as your cells are literally expanding and shifting right now. So meditation is the go-to. That is my first advice to you. And that should really be the only advice, but I'm going to give a lot more anyway, because so many people I know are going to say, I don't want to meditate, or the other excuse I hear, I can't meditate. I don't believe you. I believe that you don't want to, and that you are resistant at some level, because there are ways to meditate. There are so many different options and types of meditation. So I kind of don't want to hear the I can't meditate thing today, because I know better. I believe in you and I know that you can. So meditation, what is it for you? It's different for everybody. Find out your unique type. There's so many unique types of meditation. Oh, wow. People coming and going, yeah, that is an interesting thing. One of you said, I've been getting triggered with not having the friends in my life that I'm used to. And I took that as in people are leaving probably because your energy is shifting. So hence you don't really have an alignment with those friendships anymore. I am going through that a lot, and it's making a lot of my friends really sad. And then there's the whole, I lose friends a lot, particularly as a healer and teacher, because quite frankly, I don't have time for friendships. I teach and I'm a mom, and I have a couple of local friends, and then, my partner, and that's really it. Because I would love to have time for hundreds of thousands of friends, but at the rate that we need to teach each other, we have to do it together. So in my friends, I'm like, if you want to spend time with me, you got to come into my classes. And they do. So basically speaking, we have so much to do, and it seems like there's a heart connection that's missing in all of that action. And there's a lot of, in terms of friendship circles and healers, what I'm observing is we're shifting, and friends around us don't always know how to accept that. So the friends that are aligned with you will stay, and they will not judge. And if they view you, as you're saying, that you viewed them, that they were viewing you as you attacking them, and that's lonely. I understand that, and that is their responsibility to perceive, or in this case, perhaps misperceive. So it's really, really interesting and hard. Yes, you're right. It can be lonely, but it's a really good idea to kind of open your eyes wider in a way that you may think that you're lonely, but there's always something kind of right under your nose that you could possibly be missing in terms of friendships. I remember when I was going through everything that I've been going through this past few weeks with the event and the ascension shifts in my life, and it has been just almost catastrophic. It's been terrible. And I kind of looked around and I'm like, well, who do I want to go out to help? And I would normally go through my contacts and go through my friends and think in my head and heart, who wants to be there for me? Who am I going to let in? And the answer was no one. The answer was basically that I needed to be there for myself. I felt overwhelmed even by the idea of having friends around me. So most of my friends got a little upset. They're like, well, you don't let us in. And I'm like, I love you, trust me, respect me, and give me my space, because right now I need to be in my own heart and there for myself. And it's been the hardest thing that I've ever done, but it has also been the most rewarding thing that I've ever done. So if you think that you don't have anybody, keep in mind that you cannot be separate. That comes from a core belief of feeling separate from God and feeling lack of love for self, which means that somewhere in you that there's separation is so strong that you would feel separate from God too. So it's something that we need to, when we feel that, we have to understand that it's kind of an ego lie. It's kind of a mind lie. It can't really be true that loneliness is real when God is inside of us and we're always connected, and there's no way to be separate. And I'll tell you some advice that Dolores gave me about that when I feel that way. She said, oh, really? You have a neighbor that you've never met that's probably been wanting you to say hello that you do not talk to because you're so busy. So maybe you should go outside and connect. Maybe you should look right within your home and play with your children. Maybe you should take a walk outside and see how God presents his or herself. I'll only say that because that's how humans relate. How does God present itself to you? Walk to the mailbox, take a walk in the park, go somewhere different. When you think you're lonely, do something different with that fear than you've ever done before. And the more vulnerable that feels, the more you need to do it. So I honored Source's advice, and I went outside and took a walk, and there was a beautiful cat that came and rubbed herself on my feet. And then I met a neighbor, and then I met another neighbor, and then I met one of my kids' friends. And before I knew it, I wasn't lonely anymore. But regardless of that, I think it's really important to know that we can sit with ourselves. And when we try to tell ourselves that we are lonely, to know that that is a lie from our mind that really isn't true. You see where I'm going with that? It really just isn't true. Your next question is, what advice do you have for healing modalities? Your heart. What they're saying about that is your heart is the master. When the mind tries to be our master, we tend to turn off the heart because both of them have a hard time working simultaneously as long as we believe that separation is true. And right now, we still have, 60% of the human conscious collective who believes that separation is true. So that's the majority of people on the planet. So with that being stated, modalities have to be something that would bring you back to your own heart, allowing the heart to be the blueprint and the guide to your mastery at all times. So what that means for me is in healing modalities, I like something that triggers me to feel. No matter what that feeling is, because it kind of doesn't matter if it's a negative feeling, it means it needs to be brought up, it needs to arise so that it can be forgiven, so that it can be released. And if it's not meant to be released, if it's still serving you, then it's helping you expand, and it will be transmuted into a higher frequency emotion that will then help you heal. Do you see where I'm going with that? Hi, Candace, I love you. So with healing modalities, I have a lot of preferences. I really like elemental shamanism. I like beyond quantum healing, the founder of whom is here today. That's Candace Carl Goldman. You can find that at Beyond Quantum Healing. Type it, Candace, please. You can find it at quantumhealingpractitioners.com and somewhere else as well. So I do like that because it leads you back to your heart. But I love elemental shamanism. I really love sound healing. I love EFT. That's the emotional freedom technique. That's tapping. And there's so many of them. I like SRT, spiritual response therapy. I like shadow work if you feel it's necessary. My goodness, there's so many of them that I like with a strong preference towards beyond quantum healing. But my point is, Lyran Feline ambassadors today are expressing that whatever modality you choose, to understand that it's not the modality that's guiding you towards healing, it's your own heart center. Keep that in mind. Quantumhealers.com. Thank you. You can find my favorite modality there. Whatever it is, stay heart connected. Okay, so going on to the scale of consciousness, if Aaron or someone who does good graphics can really do something for me, I would be ever so grateful, because I get a lot of information about 30 minutes before a class, and the only thing I have time to do in my life with the brutal teaching schedule that I put upon myself in this lifetime is to quickly jot it down with automatic writing, and then we end up doing graphics afterwards. And that's how we work, because I like the information to not be too much in preparation, because then it will feel too logical, too ego-driven. So I got this new scale of consciousness that I wanted to bring to you today, considering on a scale of 1 being the lowest frequency emotionally possible, the lowest principle or emotion possible to experience, think, or feel, and then 1,000 being the highest. We're going to start with the lower ones. Okay. All right. There you have it. And a view of my lovely coffee cup there as well. Let me move that out of the way. All right. So So we'll have a better graphic later, and I appreciate whoever's going to volunteer to do that. I'll make it up to you. So we have at the lower end of the new scale of consciousness presented by David Hawkins and Dolores. I'm not shocked that they're working together. Did you hear that, Candace? So at 20 frequency, you have the emotion and thought of shame. That is actually the lowest scale of anything. And David Hawkins used to think that it was different. He used to have apathy somewhere up here, but he doesn't. So shame is the lowest. And then apathy is actually one step above, coming in at 30. Okay. Then you have guilt. And the reason why guilt is above shame and apathy, shame makes you just completely dead inside, hence the apathy. However, guilt actually can be a little bit higher because guilt makes you do something about it. So when you feel guilt, it's higher than shame. It's not quite shame. It's, well, I'm feeling guilty, which means that something needs to be brought to my attention, either for a shift in vision, a shift in life purpose, or maybe a shift away from something that isn't serving me that's causing shame. Either way, guilt is an action-based phenomenon, and that is why it is higher than both shame and apathy. Okay, so here again, we're going above, and at 75 frequency, you have grief. Okay, so grief is just despair and hopelessness. And then above that, you have arrogance. Now, Hawkins used to call that something else. I believe he used to call that pride. But pride can actually be incredibly positive if it's true pride in a confident way. But this is not what this is. This is false pride. It's ego arrogance. Okay. At 125, we have anger. Are you surprised that anger is a pretty empowered emotional frequency? I'm not. Because empowerment is where that's leading. When you feel angry, it means that you want empowerment. That's why. So don't view anger as something bad. It's actually above all these other negative things. All right. And then at 150, Hawkins and Dolores describe this as desire. And there's a difference between true desire, which is creative and intentional and positivity, and ego desire, which is a longing, like the type of desire where you don't have something and you're focusing on not having it to create something that you want. You focus on the not having. So that type of desire is where you are here, coming in at 150 frequency. And this was added, you notice, in his original scale of consciousness, between the energy of ego desire and courage, he had nothing, but now he has disgust. So disgust is at 175, which is slightly below the energy of courage. Strange, huh? And here's the reason. Have you guys ever watched, and if you will do this, I'm going to leave this as your homework. I would like for you to watch a movie. People thought that it was a child's movie because it's animated, but the movie is called Inside Out. Have you watched it? And in this movie, I'm not going to tell you why I want you to watch it, except that the premise of it is that there are characters inside of a child's brain. And these characters represent emotions. And whenever disgust was activated as a character in the movie, she was like giving the child thoughts of disgust and loathing. And when that happened, there was a lot of power in that made her want something different. So disgust is a trigger for courage to happen. If you're really disgusted with something, you tend to say, you know what, I'm done with this. That means I'm going to change it right now. So please go watch Inside Out if you haven't, and you will understand why some of these frequencies are very powerful, like anger and disgust. And then obviously at 200, we had courage. So when you have courage, that's like, you know what, I'm done feeling all this and I'm gonna have enough courage to make a change. So now between 250 and 1000, all of the emotional and thought frequencies that are above 200. Here we have neutrality. Neutrality simply means that you're in a state of balance. So he's saying that differently. Neutrality is a balanced state, is how he would describe it now. And then he calls it curiosity, but here coming in at 310 frequency, I like to call this wonder. And Dolores liked that a little better, but he calls it curiosity. So because this is his class, I wrote curiosity. But somewhere, I also believe that wonder can be neutral. So I believe that wonder actually encompasses both of these thoughts and frequencies, because you can have a neutral type of wonder, and then you can have a positive, more curious type of wonder. And both states and thoughts, frequency-wise, are incredibly powerful. Now, above this, you have the wisdom of reason. He called it reason, and Dolores called it understanding. So when you start to reason with yourself so that you understand, you get a 350 frequency. And then, are you surprised that love is only at 500? Now you're talking all the way up to Christ-like grace, divine grace. So love is actually not the highest emotion or thought that God within you can experience in frequency. Surprise. Above that, you have joy coming in at 540. You have here peace is actually above joy. And Dolores called that bliss. He called it peace, and she said it feels like bliss. So these thoughts and emotions, the thought of peace, which produces the emotional frequency of bliss, are the two things that are coming in at 600. How is what possible, Linda? And then you have above this is new, this celebration he's never discussed before, but he's not the only person discussing it. So basically at 650, you have celebration. Celebration is one of the highest frequencies on this planet. Coming in at 650, it basically means that when you celebrate, you have the capacity to accept something as perfect. When you celebrate something, it's not always a party, but you are accepting that you are within divine perfection. So that is what celebration actually means. It's like, this is peaceful, this is joy, this is love, this is perfect. Sometimes you can party about it, but sometimes you just celebrate something even when it's hard. When you can celebrate, you can see God in all things, which leads to, okay, now we have, coming in at 700, we have wholeness. Notice that's different. This is different. He didn't have these things. He had joy, love, joy, peace. He did not have any of these four things when he was alive. He jumped from this to that. So now we have wholeness. Wholeness is coming in at 700. And what wholeness is when you have a thought that you are whole, that you are infinitely complete and perfect, that everything about you is in complete acceptance. It's like a degree of acceptance that means that when you're whole, you're not searching, you're not longing, you are not seeking, you are not doing anything but saying, this is perfect, this is divine perfection, as whole as it is. Okay, so then he has added unity above that at 800. Okay, so he described unity as the ability to be one with any other being. So unity is like, I see God in that being. So those are the beings that are in your life. These are with humans and animals. Okay, so that's all living unity with humans and animals. When you have unity, you see oneness within you and another being. No matter how they have harmed you allegedly, you don't even see harm in that being. You only see wholeness, celebration, peace, joy, love, whatever it is. Therefore, you are able to relate no matter what they have done or haven't done to you, for you. You don't even believe in anything happening to you at that point. You believe in everything happening for you. So unity involves a certain level of gratitude. So he called it unity. I didn't write this down because she didn't say it then, but she is saying it now. She said that unity has to involve the feeling of gratitude. So that now can go in the chart. Thank you, Dolores. And then we have 900, which is oneness. Now, the difference between unity and oneness is as follows. Unity is oneness and wholeness, and you see nothing but love and God in all beings. Oneness is that you see love and God in all expressions, in things and people and circumstances. So I'm going to give you some difficult things, and I'm going to ask you, can you see oneness in them? Can you see oneness in 9/11? Can you see oneness in the person who did it? Or we're not going to go too deeply into that because there's a lot of beliefs over who did it. Can you see oneness in Donald Trump? Can you see oneness in the situations that he allows and perpetuates? I'm going to give a specific one. The children, the immigration problems, with children being separated from their families. Can you perceive oneness in that situation? Is that hard? Getting harder? Can you see oneness in Ted Bundy? You see where I'm going with this? That's oneness. No matter what, you can see oneness. And then finally, grace, which is beyond human reference point. That is at 1,000. So somewhere in between this piece here at 600 and I want to say right about 700, Hawkins had in his old scale of consciousness, he had written enlightenment here. Spelling. Okay, just pretend that says enlightenment, okay? So he had written enlightenment here, that you reach enlightenment here, and he had not defined celebration or wholeness, but it is the celebration and the wholeness that actually leads you to the stage that he calls enlightenment. Do you see what I'm saying? And then above that, you have unity and oneness, which leads to, can you see where we're going with this? Dolores is quantifying this. She is the person who added it, and he agreed. And he wouldn't have when he was in bodied form, by the way. So celebration and wholeness are compartments that lead to enlightenment. Unity and oneness are compartments of energy that combined together lead to grace. Whoever does this chart for me, I thank you in advance. Oh my goodness gracious. I'm feeling so much gratitude right now. Flow is up here with grace. Acceptance and flow are a part of grace. So they are up here contained in them. Once you feel grace, you will feel acceptance and flow in all things naturally. That is why they are not put in this chart. Another thing that you will notice about this chart is that it does not contain the word fear. And somewhere, I want to say about 100 or so, somewhere between 75 and 100, Hawkins had put the word fear right about here. He did not do that in this chart because he said that all of this from here down, basically shame all the way up to disgust all the way down to shame, those are fractals of fear. Those are, you cannot have any of this without having fear. If you have any of this, you have fear. He didn't say that for courage, but for the rest of these frequencies from 20 all the way up to 175, that shame, apathy, guilt, grief, arrogance, anger, ego, desire, and disgust, if you have any of that, they are complex components of fear. So that was not something that he talked about then or was able to explain then, but he does now. That is the majority of my material. My goodness, I got through that in 40 minutes. I'm proud of myself. I have pride, he would say. But it's not arrogant pride. I'm just relieved. Okay. Let's take a look at your questions in the Ask a Question section. Where are most of the human conscious collective on this scale? I knew that you personally were going to ask me that, and I'm not going to get into that as much as I love you because I suck at math. That is the only reason why I'm not going to get into that. If we do get into the breakdown of those components, my brain will explode. He tried to get me to do it, but I just, if I'm awake, if I were trancing, I could probably do it. But as a conscious awake being right now, I can't. My brain starts to go, eh. So it's not that easy to explain all that because, and here's the other thing that Dolores said, she wouldn't let me do that because she said that every time you think about it, it shifts. And every time we breathe in and out, anytime our thoughts shift focus, we change our frequency, which changes where we stand on that scale of consciousness in the breakdown that you're asking for. So she can't do that either because she said, anytime, if we explain it to you now, blink an eye, it's going to change again. So that really doesn't matter to her. It mattered a little bit to him, but the percentages of where we are on that scale right now don't matter to her, because she said if you ask her tomorrow, the collective will have changed again for the better or the worse, always. So it's not going to matter. And it's not small changes. She said it's big changes. It's not little blips. It's not staying the same and going a little higher, a little, like we are shifting all the time. So those percentages matter not, she said. Yeah. So that's her perspective. I asked her, would she do it? And she just said no. We have about 15 minutes for me to go over questions. So let me start there. What are the possibilities our souls and as a collective wish to manifest with the Lionsgate portal? We can do that, she said, by looking at this everything here is what, and where we stand currently, we're just trying to get to wonder and curiosity. This is the majority of the people that woke up in that 40% are here, but there are up to 20% who are here. That's understanding, love, and joy. And the people that are beyond that 20% are unawakened. The rest of that, the other 20% are down here in wonder and curiosity, either neutral wonder or positive wonder, which she labeled curiosity. So, yeah. So that's where we are. That's what we're looking to manifest right now. She also said that by 2021, that where we stand currently, even though it could and often does change, is that we will be between bliss and celebration. And then by 2028, we will be in wholeness. By 2032 to 2033, we will be here in oneness. So she's giving unique predictions based upon where we stand. And she's also letting me know to tell you that it could easily shift at any time. So do not write this down and treat it like you treated Nostradamus, she said, whatever that means to you. I don't know what it means to me because I'm not familiar with a lot of her and Nostradamus's interactions. Candace, she might be. She told me a lot and then I forget. Sometimes she gets upset with me and she's like, I don't know why I tell you anything because you just forget everything. I'm like, well, if I didn't forget everything, I wouldn't be a neutral blank slate for you to teach something new the very next damn day. She and I have interactions like that all the time. Okay, next question. As an incarnated Lyran feline, I've been researching my origins and desperately trying to find guidance. Hawkins is saying he takes my hand with the pen, and I've got your question in front of me. Let me just share my screen with you for a second. Hang on. Let me show you what he just did. Hang on. So, okay, here's my screen, right? Okay, so let's see how much you can you see this here? Is the screen shared? Can you see my questions that I'm looking at? So he took my pen and he pointed, he moved my hand a little bit, but I stopped him and he was like, move your hand right to that question desperately, right here. And he wanted me to just highlight that and put my pen on it. You can't see me doing it, so I'm not going to show you with my hand what he did, but he was like, right there, that word there, that's what I'm seeing, despair. And see, the energy of despair, I'm going to stop sharing the screen right now. Hold on, stop sharing. The energy of despair is, hold on, kind of here. And depending upon what level of despair it is go all the way down to apathy. So apathy is sort of a conglomeration of grief and guilt and despair. And despair is a frequency of apathy, guilt, and grief. So when you're here and you're desperate about something, there's a part of you that's saying, I don't want to be in my current experience. So that's just something to keep in mind, that if you don't want to be in your current experience, it may not be conscious. You may not be aware of it and thinking about it, but it's somewhere in there for you to use that word desperate and despair. because despair is a part of the word desperate. So that's just what he's pointing out. And then let's see, you're going on to say, could you please talk about our missions as a ground crew here on Earth? Dolores says you're here to bring your knowledge into the embodied form. Seriously? And Hawkins corrected her. Are you guys going to fight? So she said that, and then he said, well, form is of no relevance. They don't have relevance to being human. They don't know how to be human because they're not human, which is the point of this class. And now she's saying, yes, but the point of being on Earth is to try to be human and to bring your light to humanity, because you can't be having a mission as another being when you're here to try to be human. So I don't know how that's relating to you, but the two of them have a little bit of discrepancy in opinion, apparently, that I thought was interesting to share. You guys spirit brawl. Linda, you're funny. She'll call somebody out, though. She will in a heartbeat. So I will talk about your missions on Earth, though, regardless of whether these two are going to sit here and continue to brawl about it. I will talk about it. What I've noticed as a Lyran feline ambassador on this planet is that we have a variety of missions, the majority of which stems on a foundation of awareness. So we are here for what I call the Great Spiritual Awakening, which Dolores said that she referenced a lot. When people were going through, the quantum healing hypnosis technique, they, when they were, in theta, that a lot of them would talk about having different missions, but there was a bigger awakening that they were aware that they were going through and here to help others with. So there is a mission at the collective level, and it is awareness, because you're here as a soul group for the Great Spiritual Awakening, is what she has always called it, the awakening or the Great Spiritual Awakening. Both of them call it two different things, but it's the same thing. The awakening says one, the other says Great Spiritual Awakening. And then the same person goes on and says, after my research, I'm a little disoriented. And one prevalent question in my mind is, now what? How many Lyrans are on Earth? Are they in specific areas? She said that doesn't matter, that the Lyrans, the Arcturians, and the Pleiadians represent the majority of the awakened beings within the 40% collective right now. So that is something that you do need to know. Where they are doesn't matter. We're everywhere. I got a flash in my mind, so I know it's relevant. And my knowingness went to a part of a movie. It wasn't an easy movie. I don't watch a lot of movies. Sometimes I'll just be staying at a friend's house and they're like, hey, come watch this. Or they'll be at my house and we're like, I'm going to watch a movie. Great. I'm going to permeate my mind with more crap. So I was watching a movie with someone not long ago, and it was called Lucy. Have you guys watched the movie? I'm going to do a spoiler alert here. If you want to watch it, don't listen to me. Just walk away right now, because I'm going to spoil it, because Dolores told me to. So you can blame her, not me. So at the end of the movie, we're going straight to the end. Something happened where, for those of you who watched the movie, she was ascending into her God self. That's how the movie puts it. Dolores says it's more of a reminder and a remembrance that she has always been. So whatever way, she's going through, ascension, right? And at the end, she disappears. There's nothing left. She has no body. She doesn't die. Ascension means different things to us based upon where we are in the collective. Many different people have done the whole, like the Tibetan rainbow body class. We talked about one of the more enlightened ways to ascend. Death is another way. If you believe in death, and people in lower frequencies will perceive a body that has died, that's another way. But in this movie, they talked about a way that not a lot of people experience. And it is like, they believe so much in oneness, and they become spirit, and there's no body. Her clothes were just on the floor. And I remember the scientist, who was observing her ascension was like, where are you? And she said something. And she said something like, I am everywhere. And that was just it. I didn't see Powder. Maybe I should go watch Powder now. Is that a good movie? I am everywhere. Isn't that what she said? So this is kind of something that Dolores said to answer your question. So the now what, Hawkins answered and said, now nothing. When you are in doubt, the energy of doubt can bring you back down further than apathy. If you're in doubt, do nothing. Dolores said, what now? Enjoy your life. You are here to live it in the moment. What now? Whatever you decide now is absolutely perfect, she said, no matter what that is. Okay, there were a lot of questions within that one, so I spent a lot of time on that one because there were so many questions within it. So let's move on. What is the most effective way to raise our consciousness in these times? Dolores said acceptance. Unexpected guess. Okay, Bill Thetford says release of judgments. Yeshua says release of attachments. We definitely have some unexpected guests. Hawkins says acceptance in each and every moment. Yeshua is reminding me of a verse that, Linda, you will remember because we just talked about this morning. So Yeshua channeled through a book that I don't talk about very often, but I really love this book, and I just recently started to read it in small portions, and it is called The Way of Mastery. And it's all channeled through him, and it is incredibly pure, much like ACIM, similar principles. So I recognize the voice, of my father, if you will. I call him my dad. And I recognize Jesus's voice within that. And there was a verse in there that came with the book when I ordered it in the little flashcards that it has. And sometimes, within those flashcards, I kind of go through them and grab one that means something and put it in my car or put it on my desk or whatnot for the week. And I was at Russ's house the other day and he had the cards and I'm like, ooh, I like that one. So I stole it and I put it in my car. So it's in my dashboard right now. And this card was amazing and it will answer your question. Dolores has often told me that we're here to create and remember an experience of heaven on earth. So the concept of Mu, she didn't talk much about that, but she does now. So Mu is actually the place where, if you believe in ascending to somewhere, that's where you're going. But in her mindset now, it is where we already are, those of us in the 40%. So book is called Way of Mastery. In this book, there was a verse, and it said, when you when you allow and embrace each present moment, you are literally creating heaven on earth. Everyone that's here today describes that. All the beings that are talking to us today describe that. Try to create your now as heaven, embracing and allowing each and every moment as pure divine perfection. And that is the quickest way to raise your consciousness in every situation. All of them agree on that in all of this little round table event we're having today. Gosh, I didn't expect so many people to be here today. They just all popped in. I thought this was going to be a class where I just sat down and read all the material, answered your questions, and hung up 30 minutes early because that's how tired I am. Nope. Or all lion-headed beings, Lyran? No. That's like, I don't know. That would be almost like trying to say all Black people are African. No offense. I love you. You who had that cute question. I love you, and I'm totally just making a joke because Dolores told me to. But basically, the whole cat concept, the Egyptians did see that and observe Lyran felines with a human-like body, a humanoid body, and a lion head. And a lot of those beings like Bastet, Sekhmet, those were the ones that you see that are depicted as gods and goddesses in the times with the lion head. Those were Lyran feline beings, to answer your question more clearly. Is it that way now? Not so much, because this is the beginning part, if you believe in time, in the dream or the matrix or Maya or illusion, whatever have you. In this dreaming, when you believe in time and creation, we created a beginning where Lyran felines were here, along with Lemurians, and Lyran felines kind of stood in the middle of everything, seeking balance at all times. And Bastet was one of those. She was one of the first Lyran felines. All those beings with the lion heads, they were Lyran felines at that time, but not so much now, to answer your question. How can a channel speak with and work with Lyran feline people? And is there a way I can reintroduce myself to them? David said it's important that you understand that you cannot be a separate race, that you, as a fraction of God, a fractal of God. When you understand that you're a fractal of God, you will also understand that you cannot be separate from anything. So if you feel that you're different from a reptilian, think again. If you think you're different from an Anunnaki being, think again. Different from a gray being, think again. They are all fractals. If oneness is true, and believe me, it is, you are all aspects of each other. So the best way you can speak with and work with a Lyran being is by being them. This is a concept of channeling. In all of my course, channeling 101 through 401, in the whole series, every part of it, we talked about how to use the art of inquiry. And also we talked about this in my class called the Art of Spiritual Inquiry, which is also available on my website. All these classes are. It's always important to give yourself permission to feel Lyran, act Lyran, smell like a Lyran, taste like a Lyran, dance like a Lyran, walk like a Lyran, talk like a Lyran, and then be a Lyran. So start out enacting that through your senses. And most of you here are empaths, so you are clairsentient beings. So when you clearly feel, that's what clairsentience means. You have clear feeling. When you clearly feel through your senses, by asking and inquiring what it's like to feel like a Lyran, to think like a Lyran, to smell like a Lyran, to talk like a Lyran, to think like a Lyran, then eventually you're going to grasp that concept of how to be a Lyran. So through your senses, that's how you learn. When you have bodies, that's how you learn it first. In other words, play. Lyrans play. You've been seeing energy healers talk about lion-headed beings assisting them. Yeah, that's probably a part of the ambassadors in this group that we're talking to today that call themselves the Lyran feline ambassadors. They show up that way, side by side. I noticed there's a white one, a white lion-headed being, a little bit of stripes across her face. There's a tall male. There's a bunch of them. Some of them had a lot of a fur and a mane. Some of them don't. I mean, I've always seen those things too. That's just the ambassadorship that has always been there. Next question. I've been having really strong obsessive thoughts that are negative and self-critical in nature. Usually events in the past or future, which I know don't exist, but I was wondering, how do I stop obsessing, and what are the ascension symptoms, and are these ascension symptoms like purging of the ego? No, you cannot purge the ego. In this wave of ascension, in this era of awakening and awareness, the point is not to release something, purge it, or get rid of it. The point is to find it helpful and to assimilate and to become it. Hawkins calls this integration. The point is to integrate the ego, not release it, kick it out, kill it, death of the ego, purging. Not really. The point is to stop thinking that something has happened to you. You are afraid of the past and you are afraid of the future. So the best way you can get rid of that is by accepting the now. Accept that now is all that matters. So this is a deeper healing. You might be someone who could stand to sit with a healer and work on the acceptance of the now. you'll have a reference point towards now if you're still worried about past and future. But the more you think about now and feel now and connect to your heart in the now, the easier this is going to be. So this may require healing is probably what wants to happen here. Course in Miracles often states, and Yeshua also states through the Course in Miracles, that you cannot plan for the future. It's not possible. And when you try to, by becoming afraid of the future, you will literally cause yourself emotional breakdown. So the more you focus your thoughts with discipline, such as meditation, there's also different types of retraining of the brain. Beyond quantum healing helps out a lot in this. This is one of those modalities that I like for that reason, because you get to kind of retrain yourself to stop thinking about things that don't matter, like the past or the future. EFT is really good for that because it teaches you presence. So the emotional freedom technique, the tapping, teaches you presence of what you currently feel. And if you have to go backwards in anything, EMDR is a really good one, because then you do it and then it becomes, with EMDR, they practice feeling how you felt about the past, and you go into that memory over and over again to retrain your brain out of the trauma, and you train your brain to something other than the trauma. And the more you experience that, even though it doesn't feel good, the less your brain actually is activated and engaged in the frequency of trauma over and over and over and over again. So this is about brain retraining, is what that is. Heart math is another thing that is really effective at what you're saying there, JJ. Next question, will there be radical physical changes on the planet in our lifetimes? Dolores says that is always something that is going to shift. In the collectives, you are perpetually shifting. So what I've observed personally is that I see some people observing changes and then other people being on a completely different wavelength. Like, for example, one of my friends was really worried, like, because he lives about like maybe 20, 30 minutes from me. And he was worried about a storm that was coming into my town because on the radar, it looked absolutely disastrous. And he has kind of like been in a darker frequency and kind of a depressed place, I've noticed. And he basically was worried, and he was like, sent a picture to one of my friends, and, you know, and then my friends were reaching out going, well, I think you're okay. I mean, this is not my reality. Because that person who reached out to me and was worried about the storm, he was like, well, you seem okay to me. And I slept through the storm. My little daughter was going through a completely different stage of her unique individual ascension, and she was terrified of it. You know, apparently it was pretty bad. And my kids are on school buses right now that are having a hard time getting through flooded waters right now in St. George. So the transportation department sent like a note to parents saying, we're having a hard time getting your kids home. So be patient with us. We will do it, but we need to do it safely. And it's flooded here. So, but I am not even worried about it. Like most parents would be on the frequency scale of any fear, you know, anything like that would be rushing down to pick their kids up from school. But I know 1000% that they're safe, you know, but my friend was worried that this wind was going to like wipe out our house or something, probably, who knows, you know, and then, it was interesting to just observe, like, and then my other friend from whom he passed a message, that friend was like, well, I think things are fine. I mean, I'm questioning because the picture of it looked bad, but you seem fine to me. And then me, like, I woke up because my little daughter woke up, but my unique expression of that particular wave of energy was, oh my gosh, this is fabulous. Like I was sitting there like viewing it in awe, and I'm like, that is the strongest wind. That is amazing. We need this rain so much. You know, my roses in the front of my house really need the water right now. So this is going to be great because I don't have to run the sprinklers 3 times a day just to feed my freaking roses. Like, so I went back to sleep peacefully, and I could hear all the howling and all this stuff, but I loved it. Like, I thought it was profound, you know, and I just slept through it from that point on once my daughter went back to sleep. But she had a bad experience. She thought it was going to kill her. I had to like spend 5 or 10 minutes getting her back to sleep. And then I went and slept through it with no fear at all. So do you see what I'm saying about how people in collectives will experience, you know, thousands of people, or experience hundreds of thousands of people in collectives who are on a certain frequency will experience an earthquake, a tsunami, a microburst, that's coming out here in tornado season. We will have those kind of things, particularly in Kansas. I'll have a lot more microbursts than normal, a lot more tornadoes than normal. But then there's other people I know in Kansas who I'm not worried about at all, and then like they'll kind of look out at the people who are experiencing it going, my gosh, that just like destroyed 200 homes, but just went right over mine and didn't touch it. So do you see how ascension is incredibly individual right now in our collectives? So it's impossible for me to say there won't be radical changes, but from my perspective, I will see radical changes in terms of other people's environment, but I will not be personally experiencing it because I'm not on that wavelength. That storm last night destroyed, knocked down some trees in my neighbor's yard and did some pretty terrible things, but my yard looks great. I think it knocked over my trash can, which is annoying, but that was about it. Everybody else's trash cans were rolling down the freaking street. So you see what I'm saying? Will ascension come to a place where supernatural abilities are an everyday thing? Dolores thinks yes. David Hawkins argues. I personally have been connected with her and trust her significantly more. I think he's great, but he's not on her frequency. They're very different from each other. So she says yes. He says that, again, we're looking at various timelines of people who believe in time, and those people who believe in time to the extent where it contains birth and death and disasters and all those things. Sometimes it will not be every day. In their dream, they don't prefer an awakening at all. Some of those beings don't prefer to be awake ever, and they have their role. I know that surprises you to hear from him that there are massive collectives of people who aren't here to wake up. But that's what he says. Okay. I know they're arguing about it. She completely disagrees with him. So, but there you have it. In my personal view as a Lyran Feline ambassador, what I will say is, again, we're looking at unique experience of ascension, and I can't tell you that your dream is going to be the same as everybody else's. That they agree upon. Okay, good. I feel like a mediator sometimes. This is worse than, what is it that Candace and I do sometimes? The A-team, when they start going at it. Okay. Looks like we have a couple more questions. So let me take another. Since the opening of the Lion's Gate last year, I have felt stronger with a new push to heal and learn more. They're both saying that that's good and that's normal. That's exactly where most healers are and should be. The question is this a new awakening for me and others? Stages of an awakening is what Dolores says. There are stages of it. This is where she really strongly agrees with Hawkins' work because she feels like people go through certain stages of it. So, oh no, he's still going at that, Candace. He's never going to stop Einstein. Yeah, he's a mess. In a vision I was called Kitara, Dolores says that's an aspect of thousands and thousands of people. So that's a pull towards the collective that is embodied as the Lilith collective. I do understand. She said, I was told I'm a guardian of birds and animals. Can you please tell me anything more? No, not today. That would, if I start going into that, it'll be like a personal reading, and I don't think it relates to a lot of people right now. But if you want a personal reading, I am doing them for a few more months only before I close out. But today I'm not going to get into it because we would just be talking forever. I'm there with you on that, and I understand, but it just would take a long time. I think there is going to be a closed group on Facebook for people to discuss. And Amber was going to start it, but I never responded to her. Amber, this is me saying yes to that. Okay. Next question. I had a dream at the beginning of 2015 that I was on another planet. I walked down a path and thousands surrounded me. I came to a few steps and walked up, and a medal was placed around my neck, and I was told, "You are getting it. We are so proud of you." Yeah. hmm That's them. That's your people. It's your Lyran feline ambassadors. And then she said, when I have trouble sleeping, I imagine being surrounded and comforted by lions. They bring me so much peace. Do they stay with me? Yeah, of course. The spirit totems, spirit guides, they don't, it's impossible to be separate from your spirit guides. I got so excited about that I probably shook my screen. Guys and gals, loved ones, friends, family, New Age teachings really, really frustrate me. And this is a part of my mastery that I want to be patient with and be forgiving about, because Yeshua always says it's not a problem. That's their dream. Allow for it, respect it, honor it. If you don't like it, forgive it. So I am going through that. However, as a being incarnated in a body, I become innately frustrated with New Age teachings. I don't identify because it is taught that you see and hear in a way that you begin to visualize and hear and sense things externally from you. In the essence of true channeling, you actually use the art of spiritual inquiry to see and sense as a being, not talking to them, not talking for them either. You know, when you call in a being and they step in and you're like, and now I speak for Yeshua. That doesn't happen to me either as a channel. What I teach is 1000% different. And there's a reason for that. And those of you teachers listening right now, you know what I'm going to say. I know you feel it to the core in your essence, because I can feel you feeling it. But I'm feeling it as you. I'm not feeling it for you. The feeling is not happening to me. I'm not seeing a being standing in a room most of the time. What happens before any of that happens is that I speak. They come through me as me, in my thoughts, in my awareness, in my skin, in my body, and I become them and they become me, and I am merging with that being before any of that whole seeing them walking by me and behind me, in front of me. Before any of that happens, I have to be experiencing a merge with and as that being. I become that being. So this idea that we are separate, praying to something that's hierarchical and above us, oh, that makes me angry like nobody's business, because it's not true. It is disempowering. It takes away your power. And I'm here to help you understand that that's not what Ascension is about right now. That's not what Dolores is teaching me. And I get real fired up about it. And she's like, get angry, get empowered. Yeah, she's laughing at me. I'm aware that I'm on my soapbox, but I just needed to be right now. All right. Are the Lyran Collective and the Elohim one and the same with what I just said? Again, all the collectives are fractals of oneness. And in the dream, we like to separate them as this collective and that collective. But in oneness, we're all one whole giant family. And God likes to express. God likes to love. God likes to fight. God likes to argue and agree and then disagree and then start all over again and make peace and return to that beautiful joy of what in the sacred text is called the atonement. That's remembering that nothing was ever wrong. In other words, forgiveness. God likes to do these things in Maya, Matrix, illusion, dreams, all these things we call it. God likes this. We like this. Yeah, the same as a Tesla fractal. We are a fractal of God expressing in what's allegedly a separate body, because we have decided that we want to expand with the belief in separation and then merge and then go into the oneness of our true power and divinity and glory as Christ conscious beings. We do it over and over and over again. So it's impossible for the Lyran Collective not to be Elohim. It's also impossible for them not to be Seraphim. Now that's oneness teachings that is kind of really so different than these dualistic expressions. In the dream, yes, Lyrans are Elohim. in the dream. Some Lyrans can also be seraphim, some can be both. And oneness connects all these dreams so that we wake up. And that's where I think I'll close this class. Let's wake up. Does that sound good to you? Sounds really good to me, by golly. I love the dream simultaneously, and I feel more awake than I ever have been. So I'm going to love the dream, and I feel like this stage of the dream is just to release, for me personally, and for many in the Lyran Feline Collective, it is to release all concepts of separation. And that's what I'm doing. So with that, namaste, love, light, and absolute oneness. I will see you again when I get back from Camp Love next week. We'll be doing some voting for September's classes and channelings. Apologize to you that we had a couple of cancellations this month, unexpected due to the loss in our family. It is unavoidable. I just was not in the position to channel, and I thank you for understanding that. It's rare, but it occasionally happens. So what else is going on? Last minute opportunities to be at Camp Love. If you feel like traveling to Idaho and working with me in person, you can. Just go to campiamlove.com to secure your seat. There's just a few more spots. And it starts Friday night. But you can come on Saturday too. You'll just be missing my smudge ceremony, but that'll be all that you're missing. We officially start classes. I think I have my class at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. So there's that. I don't know who's doing the graphic, but I know someone will. They always do, and I appreciate it. I know I don't do graphics. That's all I do know. I'm just not good at that. What else is going on September the 8th? You can see me in London. Very cheap tickets there, cheapest I've ever offered them. And then you'll be able to see Stuart Pierce the next day. His same price, but different event the very next day. He will also be a guest speaker for about half an hour at my event. And then I will be visiting his event as well. If for those of you who have tickets for Stuart, you can see me. And if you have tickets for me, you can see Stuart, or you can come participate in both of our channelings and workshops. He's doing a wonderful workshop. He's a powerful angelic being and a master of alchemy and voice. So he's teaching about empowerment. It's going to be a good one. Yeah. So that's on September the 8th. You can find that website by emailing him at stuart@stuartpierce.com or going to his website, stuartpierce.com. What else? For me, just go to my website under live events. You'll see the September the 8th event in London. And then I have an event in October and in November at St. George. So you'll see that as well on my website if you feel like that. Sessions have been opened up again until, as of now, we're suspecting they could go to the beginning or at best case to the end of November, but we're not sure. So we've opened them up again because of basically you begging and pleading and prostrating yourselves on the floor asking me to. I'm kidding about that last part. I just don't want to break any hearts. And I know that you guys took it pretty badly when I decided to stop doing sessions. So I'm opening up for a little bit longer. Not much, just a little bit longer. So you can feel free to schedule that directly from the site as well, or email me for a link about it and I'll give you your own little link. So if not, I'll see you again next week when I get back from Idaho. It's going to be a blast. It's good times. And I'm excited about it. I got to go home and make sure my kids got home. I'm sure they did, but I just want to check. All right. I love you. I'll see you next week. Namaste.